would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which I live and work, the Gundungurra land, and people. I pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. I also want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which you, our listeners, are joining us from today. I recognise the deep connection that First Nations people have to this land, their enduring culture, and their commitment to the preservation and care for their country. This land was never ceded, and it always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Hey there, and welcome to Beyond the Surface, the podcast where we explore the stories of people who have survived religious trauma, left high control or cult communities, and are deconstructing their faith. I'm your host, Sam, and each week I'll talk with individuals who have taken the brave step to start shifting their beliefs that might have once controlled and defined their lives. Join us as we dig into their experiences, the challenges they've faced, and the insights they've gained. Whether you're on a similar journey or you're just curious about these powerful stories, you're in the right place. This is Beyond the Surface. Welcome, Tasha. Thanks for joining me.
No, thank you for having me.
It's wonderful. I chatted to you on my other podcast, so I'm thankful for you coming back to do one that is a little bit different and a little bit more personal. So it's nice to be able to have those crossovers.
I agree.
So tell me, where does your story start? I have been asking everybody that sort of question because everybody's story starts at a different spot. So where does your story start?
Do you mean in connection with faith?
Just in general, where would your yeah, I mean, it can be, some people have started their story from birth, some people have started it from a different spot. So it's, where would you start your story?
I think if I'm thinking from the faith perspective, so my upbringing was pretty lacking in religion, to be honest. Like, I know I went to Sunday school until I was 8 or 10, something like that, and didn't understand it, kept asking questions, typically neurodivergent. This doesn't make sense. I don't get it. And then I think I either became too difficult, even though I loved the stories. But somehow all of a sudden I didn't go to Sunday school anymore. It became normal church. And I was like, oh, I'm not interested in this. My parents were like, okay, that's good. We did what we needed to do, and she made her own choice, and that was it. So that was great. And I kind of didn't have any religious upbringing, really. Like I said, I remember Sunday school, but that was about it. And then I went into teenage life, and as I mentioned, I think on the previous podcast, I kind of hit addictions pretty hard starting mid-teens, including an eating disorder. So definitely wasn't thinking about faith at all. That was not true. And it really wasn't until 2003. So I'm just working that backwards. So I was like early 30s. Right, so that's when my anorexia got really, really bad. And I also had a psychiatric breakdown. So I felt like my brain broke. That's what I felt like. My brain broke. I was hospitalized, lost my marriage, lost my job, lost my house, everything, lost everything. And it was at that time, that's when my faith journey started again.
Okay. What brought you back? What sort of led you back to that place?
Yeah, well, that's a good way of putting it. I didn't go back really voluntarily. I was kind of led back. So when I was hospitalized, I had a heart attack from anorexia. So I was hospitalized in the psychiatric ward, and I had a major psychiatric breakdown. So my brain, I was totally, now I understand, well, being a counselor, I know I was dissociated. I couldn't cope all my addictions and all the trauma I tried to squash down, because I had like years and years and years of multiple traumas that I tried to get rid of with addictions. in the ward where all my addictions were removed, everything hit me in a huge, and my brain broke. So when I was basically kept safe in there and I was fed like a turkey, so I was fed to being a stable weight and then kind of dispatched. Of course, there's no psychiatric help in a psychiatric ward. Didn't even get diagnosed or anything, no therapy. So
It's
popped
the
out.
most ironic thing, isn't it?
Yes,
Just
people don't understand.
Yeah.
And so I came out, I'd become institutionalized. I was in there for several months and I actually felt two things at the same time, traumatized by what I saw, but safe in the ward. So when I came out, I got so used to hospital life that I couldn't actually cope with real life and I didn't want to cope. I had zero interest and I was traumatized by the whole thing because by now all my trauma that I'd been squashing down had hit me in the ward, but I had no therapy. So I had a massive relapse. So I was with my ex-husband at the time, had gone through hell with me. I was horrible to be around. And we were looking for private rehab, and there were no eating disorders clinics. There was nothing, even privately. And I tried outpatient groups and it still didn't work. I was running away, like I was really not in a good space, let's put it mildly. And then I'm not quite sure how we found this out because my memory is a bit foggy around that time.
Yep.
But we found, or we were told about a rehab that was on the other side of the city. It was basically it's a safe house. So it's a safe house for a small number of women having whatever issue, eating disorder, domestic violence, whatever it was. It was a hidden house. You still had to pay, but there was always a support worker there 24 hours a day. You also had a psychiatrist there, and you went to like daily classes, which would be self-esteem classes or, and you had your own room, etc. So it was like, okay, this is the only option. But there was a clause. So it was run by a Pentecostal church, right? And my ex-husband was even more hesitant than me, and I was really vulnerable and was like, I can't go near that. I don't. And they said, no, it's just going to church on Sunday. That's it. The rest of the time, it's non-denominational. We're just there as support. So that's what I thought.
Okay.
And that's where it went wrong.
Yeah. It's interesting because as you were sort of sharing about that it's, privately run and is, a safe zone for women, I'm thinking, oh no, I know where this is headed. I know where this is headed. And, I think if you are somebody who has loved and lived the church life, whether you've left it or not, most people know that it is never just church on a Sunday. So it is much more complex and multifaceted than that. What was your experience like at this facility?
There was a lot of contradictions.
Okay.
Like I am very, very grateful because without that facility, I would be dead.
Yeah.
The hospital didn't save me, but the facility did. So I loved being in a safe house. It was on a farm. There was like 6 girls. There was support work all the time. You weren't allowed to have any visitors. Another big red flag that I didn't care about. I was like, no visitors. Great. You weren't allowed to leave the house. Brilliant. I was institutionalized. I didn't want to go anywhere.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'm on a farm. There's a minimal amount of people. I have no interaction. This is good. I was detached from life, so that made me more detached. What happened was, yes, there was church on Sunday, but it was like all day Sunday. I'd never been in the Pentecostal movement. I'd come from the Anglican Church in the UK. very strict, boring, and
Mm.
hell and brimstone. This was like a whole day thing, which I loved because I was like, oh, everybody sings and they dance, and like I love singing and dancing. It's like a big family. We all eat together. I was like, wow, this is exciting. This is
Yeah.
weird. This is like fun. So they drew me in that way, and I don't think it was intentional in that way at the time. It was, you're welcome. It's part of this is what we all do, and here you are. But you could see we were like the vulnerable, looked down upon group in the church. It was like, aren't we these wonderfully supportive people to take on like the lowest of the low and convert them, basically? And what happened was, yes, we had Bible study every day, and we had prayers in the morning, and there was a lot of talk of God through the days, which for me I quite liked at the time because it gave me this is how I work through all my trauma. So I had psychiatric sessions every single day, which was good because I was dealing with all the trauma. So couldn't have done that in society. And I liked, okay, well, at the same time as dealing with my trauma, here's these Bible study classes which are telling me right and wrong. I was like, oh, okay, hang on, right and wrong. I missed that somewhere along the way. Okay, right. So then you get kind of drawn into structure. You
Yeah.
get drawn into, being indoctrinated. And I'm like, oh, okay, right. I have rules for life. Oh, I feel safe. I have rules for everything. So it was a gradual process. And some of the girls in the house, they were more rebellious at the time, whereas I was fractured. I was really broken. So for me, it was like, oh, it's comforting, and there's a
Yeah.
supportive family. I remember I'd gone in there, I think it was around January. My birthday was April. So in that short period of time, I got to April and I got rebaptized on my birthday, which
Mm.
my ex-husband was horrified at because he
Right.
kept saying to me along the way, when he did finally visit me after a few months, was like, yes, I was healthy, but
Mm.
I was totally in the church life. And he was like, you're getting rebaptized?
Mm.
And I'm like, it's fine. It's not really going to have an effect on us. This is, I certainly wasn't preaching or anything. I just found a comfort in it. Um, and then what happened so that was April, probably a few months later. I mean, I was there oh, I'm not sure, it's 8 or 9 months probably I was there all up. So
Yep.
they were getting a good amount of money from me
Mm.
paying every week.
Yeah.
Um, But where am I going with this? Oh, yeah. So as I started to get like day release, so my ex-husband would come over and we like go somewhere. So I got a bit of an insight into daily life, which I found a bit hard.
Mm.
Um, but also I was starting to notice things in my life that didn't match up with how church life was supposed to be, and thinking, how am I going to do this on the outside? And
Mm.
then I don't know what prompted the first of these situations. I know in church, I'd often see people having hands-on healing and, being laying down by the power of God.
Yep.
So, and I was kind of terrified of that, but I
Mm.
was pushed up to have hands-on healing, but I didn't fall down. So
Mm.
then I was being resistant. And so they kept trying. And this
Yeah.
was the front of a big church with a lot of people I knew by that point, and I didn't know why I wasn't falling down. I was surrounded by people speaking in tongues, which was very confronting. And it wasn't that long after that that the exorcisms started.
Okay.
So that's when it got pretty dark and
Yeah.
very traumatic.
Absolutely. I mean, even from a standpoint of like, 8 or 9 months in an environment like this. I mean, we think about indoctrination as happening in families, and it tends to happen sort of, on a semi-regular basis, I guess. But this is like 8 or 9 months of daily immersion and daily indoctrination into a whole nother world. essentially. I
Yes.
mean,
Yeah.
for, I guess, people overseas, Pentecostal churches, I guess, are the Australian equivalent of the evangelical church. And it's interesting that you talk about the laying on of hands and things like that. My wife was in a Pentecostal church, and I remember her telling me a story about the fact that they wanted to do that for her as well. And she too didn't fall over. And instead of, because like you said, these things are happening in front of whole congregations, and so instead of her just standing there, they like physically pushed her onto the ground
Sure.
because
Yeah.
we can't
Yeah.
be seen as damaging what is supposed to be a healing process. It's supposed to be a process that draws more people into wanting that lifestyle. It's supposed to be encouraging people and things like that. So we can't have somebody up here not falling on the ground. That makes us look bad, essentially.
Yes.
We can't have that.
Yes.
Um, I want to get to the exorcisms, don't worry. But what was the impact of that day-to-day immersion on your marriage at the time? I mean, apart from the
Oh,
obvious isolation, but
yeah.
it would have been an internal shift that was happening, especially
Yeah.
if you chose to get rebaptized.
Yeah. Well, before I went into rehab, my marriage was not in a good place because my eating disorder and my slow psychiatric breakdown had destroyed what was left, really. But my ex-husband, um, we spoke about it like afterwards when we got divorced and we have an amicable divorce. He said that he stayed with me a few extra years until I was stable
Mm,
because I was so near to dying. So he knew that. So he was more in a caretaker role by that point, and we were so desperate. He was concerned about me going into this facility, but we had no idea. He's British too, so and he's not religious in any way. So he understood that the rules were that he couldn't visit me for a while, and I think he needed that break anyway. But
mm,
by the time he then saw me, the shock was quite big. And the fact that, yes, I'd put weight on, but I couldn't function outside of the house. And I was pretty indoctrinated by then. I didn't talk about God a lot, but I remember I would go everywhere with my tiny Bible. I just couldn't be away from my Bible. Like this was my safety net now. And
mm,
when I chose to get rebaptized, he was horrified. But at the same time, I think at the time we talked about me leaving the facility, and I was the one that was like, I can't, I'm not ready. But he could see that, oh, and he was concerned, how's this going to work when you come out?
mm.
Like, because by that point, obviously, I was following lots of rules about my life, which wouldn't
Yeah.
fit with our life. And I kept saying it won't come between us. Um, it was just another thing,
Mm,
right? It was just the kind of final nail in the coffin. Because when I did come out, which was shocking, it's quite hard to deal with,
yeah.
um, I became even more fixed to the rules because I wasn't coping with life outside the facility. So I was like, oh, I need to obey this, this, and this. And I'm not coping with everything. So I actually came out more fragile in a way.
Yeah. I mean, what you're describing is, labeled, I guess, as a church or a church-based facility. But if we think about it in terms of the isolation, the power dynamics, the control, um, the right and wrong rule stipulations, the dependency, the ability to sort of not just dependency on God, but the dependency on the facility and on the people around you. Um, I mean, that's a cult. Like realistically, like that's
Yeah,
a cult. That's not
yeah,
we see the same dynamics in documentaries about cults. And yes, not every church is a cult, but what you're describing is the makings and the same dynamics that you see in actual cults. Tell me about the exorcisms. How did that even happen?
Yeah, I have to say, I'm so sorry they weren't as like exciting as people might have thought.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I
but
don't think of exorcisms and exciting in the same
no,
sentence.
I suppose not. I'm thinking of what they're like in films. It wasn't like
Oh,
that.
yes, no.
Because I didn't fall down with a hands-on healing and I was resistant, which caused shame. Right, shame to them, like you said, but also, so what they did was they shamed me in reverse. It wasn't their fault, it was my fault. So that meant that there needed to be an intervention. I didn't know there was going to be this intervention. So I remember being called into one of the offices at the facility, and the preacher was there, my pastor, right? And he was really lovely. Really, I felt a lot of trust with him. Really warm, friendly, Pacific Islander. Most people where I was at the church were Pacific Islanders, which is another reason I really liked it because I travelled in Fiji and Rarotonga, so it was culture fit.
Yeah.
But there wasn't just him. There were these other people there. And I didn't know, and I felt instantly I was terrified. I
Yeah.
have no idea why I was being brought in. And his attitude was quite different. He said, we need to get this. I think like I said, it's very vague. Something like, we need to get this root of evil out of you. So I thought, I have no idea what you're talking about. Um, and yes, I was pushed down. So I was pushed down. There was hands-on healing in inverted commas. And I think there were four of them. I was told that they were all pastors. There's a lot of like speaking in tongues. I had no idea what was going on. And to me, how I felt, what was happening there, a lot of very big biblical phrases being used, like casting out of demons, lots of almost like spells being put on me to remove. And I could feel they were pushing on my body. So I had my head down on the floor and they were pushing, pulling, and just trying to manipulate whatever it was out of me. And I just thought, I don't know what's going on. I have no idea. There's this person that I trust who's rebaptized me a few months ago, and I don't know what's going on. And in the end, they stopped and told me that it would have to happen again, that what was ever was in me, they couldn't get out. And I was told like that it was like a tree root inside me and it was dark and evil and they couldn't get it all out. And I thought, nobody explained anything. So, of course, I came out of that traumatized thinking, I'm walking around with the root of evil inside me, and I don't know what the hell is going on. And I don't know what that was. And now I don't trust you. And that's when the isolation, I really felt like I'm here in this place. And all of a sudden, it's almost like the blinkers come off. All of a sudden, I'm like, okay, so my support workers were also in the church. They knew about this. And I don't know what's happening, but I can't cope in the outside world. And not long after, there was another one. This one was worse. I mean, I knew what was going to happen, but it went on for longer. And I could feel them pulling on me, trying to get this root of evil out. Again, it didn't happen. Whatever was supposed to happen didn't happen. And in the end, and you got to remember, I was a really little fragile person. So after that, I was told that I had the devil inside of me. That's what the result was. I had the devil inside of me, and that they had tried their best, and now it was up to God.
Oh my goodness.
So I came out of that thinking, I have the devil inside of me. But at the same time, I thought, but when I was having all my addictions, in theory, wasn't the devil inside of me then? I don't know what's going on. Because in my head, I'm like, I've been following all these things. I've been doing what I'm supposed to do. And and what? Now I have the devil inside of me. And then I wasn't allowed for hands-on healing. All of a sudden, it was now we don't want you here, because what
Mm.
I understood afterwards, when I was out a while afterwards, because I didn't just come out and leave the church, unfortunately. So I could see afterwards they went into hospitals, they offered their services, so they preyed on vulnerable people, they went to domestic violence shelters and they talked about their services. So they picked the vulnerable people. And now I understand a bit more about this because I've been watching some of those documentaries about Hillsong, right? So
Yeah.
what they do is they take the most vulnerable people, they turn them into these amazingly biblical people, and then they go, look at this, our celebrity. You, this could happen to you. You vulnerable person over there, you could be redeemed, but I wasn't redeemed.
You were
That
no
was the
longer
problem.
useful to them.
Yeah, and I was an embarrassment,
Mm.
because it would have been better if I played the game. I didn't know what the game was.
Yep.
I had no idea what was going on. I
Mm.
don't think it was long after that that I left, because the attitude towards me changed
Yeah.
quite a lot.
It must have been so lonely in that moment. It must have been
Mm,
like a huge shift from, what you described as, very family oriented, very community oriented, um, for that to then shift very quickly because, you
yeah,
no longer fit the need of what they deemed as useful to their cause.
yeah.
It must have been lonely.
I was, yes, and I was confused.
Yeah.
I didn't get it. I thought, but I've been doing everything I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know it was an exorcism. I didn't know for years that that was an exorcism. I
Mm,
just thought that it was another kind of hands-on healing that went wrong. Yeah, I didn't get it. It wasn't until what happened when I came out, because I couldn't cope with normal life, was I was searching for a Pentecostal church near me, right?
mm,
So I could have the same, like I needed a joyous, like service.
yeah.
So I found one, but it didn't fit in there because they were looking for different vulnerable people. And
Mm,
I'd already been at a facility. So I was kind of welcome, but there was a lot of, you need to tithe this much. You need to be like part of being, all jubilant. And I came out broken. So
yeah.
I didn't fit in there either. So I spent several years floating from church to church trying to fit in. And it was actually during those years that I kind of came out of my biblical cocoon. And
Mm,
this is my experience. I have nothing against people with faith. This is me.
yeah.
And starting to go, oh, hang on. Some of what I was indoctrinated with doesn't fit
Mm.
daily life. And that's where more kind of fracturing happened.
What was that experience of fracturing like emotionally for you?
Um, Awful, because when I came out, not that long after we divorced. So I had that whole experience of right now I live on my own.
Mm,
So I was living on my own. I was trying to find it, and I was really lonely. And I was trying because I'd been in rehab for over a year in
yeah.
total. So because I was in such a mess, I hadn't seen my friends. Well, they weren't allowed to visit. So I didn't have friends by the time I came out. And by the time I came out, I was biblical. So my current friends didn't want to know.
I
So
mean,
I
it's
was,
it's a little bit like when people go to prison and then they come out a criminal. You
yes,
came out biblical, and it's,
yes,
there is still this, it's like a tarnish almost, that regardless of, the reason why you're in that facility or, anything like that, it sort of changes people's perspective on you, whether that is, a right or a wrong thing to do. But, I think most people would agree that there is a stigma for people who are coming out of prison. It sounds almost like it was the same sort of thing, but instead of coming out a criminal in inverted commas, you came out biblical.
yes, and what happened as well is when I was trying to find the right church, I started to see things that didn't add up. So I was
Yeah.
like, hang on a minute, hang on, hang on. This church believes this, but this church believes this. But I've got one Bible. And I was going to Bible study, and I'm like, but and again, like being a kid, I'm like, what about I don't understand. And that's where I started to go, hang on a minute, hang on. Some of this doesn't fit. And because I got divorced there, and I was starting to have the time to go, well, who am I? What do I want to do with my life? I have like zero idea. I'd been ill for such a long time before I got divorced. And by this point, I was relatively physically stable with my anorexia. So I was able to go, hang on, my brain's coming back online because part of anorexia is that your brain doesn't function. So my brain's coming online. I'm questioning faith and I'm going, hang on, I don't actually think I fit in church. I
Mm.
don't even know. I don't even know if who I really am fits in the Bible. There was this massive confusion. I'm thinking, well, hang on. Some of the rules that this church requires, I don't want to do that. And I still had this, and I've got the devil inside me, apparently, which I was questioning. I'm like, well, I don't feel like the devil's inside of me. I don't know where that comes from. So it was very confusing.
Yeah. What was the impact of that concept that you had the devil inside of you in terms of trusting your own intuition or trusting your own sense of self?
It was bizarre because as I was going from church to church and getting more back into everyday life and kind of coming into myself because I got divorced, I could basically do what the hell I wanted with my life.
Yeah.
And that's when I really realized because my sexuality had been all over the place most of my life. Um, and then I'm like, okay, so hang on, I can date whoever I want now.
Mm.
So who do I want to date? I don't know. And then immediately there was that, but you can't,
Yeah.
can't, because that's not allowed in the church. I'm like, oh, and then the thought would come up, that's what the devil part is. So
Mm.
that's how I made sense of it. I'm like, oh, so they exercise me because I'm queer? Like,
Right.
so I can't do that. So I kept saying to myself, right, so I can't do that. But I really want to date like lots of different genders. Oh, but you can't, that's sinful. And in probably the last church I went to, um, I did discuss that. I remember with a church member who immediately said to me, "You're still welcome here," because it was quite a liberated church, but it was, you can't act on any of that. And then you're tolerated. And I thought, oh, here we go again. Here we go again. I'm dirty and I'm not accepted in the church. But there was that's where I kept thinking, so that's the devil part. Oh,
Mm.
right, okay. So I have the devil inside me because I'm queer and because I question the Bible. What do I do with that? So I had this big, what do I do? Do I ignore that massive part of me that's now coming online a lot, which
Yeah.
I couldn't, or am I a sinner and I have the devil inside me and I'm going to go to hell? I was like, neither of those is a great choice.
Yeah. It like that sort of, it's a lose-lose situation for you in that
Yeah.
moment. Was there a conscious recollection of I'm not going back to church, or did it just not happen? Did you just not go
Um,
back?
yeah, I did enjoy, for me with church, I really enjoyed the social aspect because I was so lonely. But
Yeah.
what happened is as it was becoming more and more obvious to me as I was getting healthier, I can't ignore my sexuality. And I didn't even understand about not being cisgender at the time, which now looking back was really quite obvious. There was all of that happening, and I was having a lot of internal distress of not being who I really felt like I needed to be. And I kept trying to like fit in at church. So I'd be like, I'll go to more Bible study, I'll go to more services. And I'm like, I can't do this. And then when I started, so I went back to dancing. So I love dancing. So I go to nightclubs dancing. So I'd go to straight and queer nightclubs dancing.
Mm.
And when I did that, and I'm like, oh, okay, so I'm really enjoying myself. So then I was spotted at one of the queer clubs and taken aside in church and told that I either left that life or I left the church. So I
Mm.
didn't want to leave the church. I wanted to be able to be in the church, but now I was told that I had to go.
Yeah. And it's interesting because most churches would not say that that they would kick people out for being queer. Um, but that's the reality of what's happening. I mean, my former church would never say that they kicked me out or forced me to leave. But when you are essentially given an ultimatum of it's this or that, that's forcing somebody, that's forcing their hand. And so was that the moment for you where you were like, okay, I'm not going back then? What was that like?
Yeah, it was awful. I remember because I was really attached to my Bible. I had like a favorite
Mm.
Bible with all the tabs on, and I love highlighters. Being neurodivergent was tablets and all this color. And I had all my Bible study books, and I was like, they have to go.
Yeah.
Like from my perception, all I could see was I go to church and I believe in God, or I have to leave the whole thing because that was the kind of choice that I was presented with.
Yeah.
So I can remember boxing up all my books and leaving them at the doors of the church. And it was so hard because I thought I have to leave. I had friends in the church, but they'd also made it quite clear. It was like you
Mm.
can't be this person. So I was like, right, okay, I have to leave them too. And they would find me. So I worked in the shopping centre near the church, and I'd get people visiting to try and get me to come back to church. But there was always you're always welcome back if you obey the rules. I'm like,
Mm.
can't. But it was really hard. It was a massive grief
Yeah.
um, to go through. And I felt so alone then because also I still felt that, okay, I have the devil inside me, which I
Yeah.
don't know if I really believe now, but it's me and the devil and what?
Mm.
So yeah, it was hard, really hard.
I mean, it's almost like, that imagery of packing the boxes up and leaving them at the church is almost like leaving a part of yourself there.
It
Um,
was, and
yeah.
up until I read the questions for the podcast, I've put a lot of that away. So
Yeah.
I've not talked about this in depth. Um, Lots of people know,
Yeah.
but it's been very much that's a part of my life that
Mm.
held a lot of support, a lot of love, a lot of structure, saved my life, but also a lot of trauma. And it was just like that, shut the door on that, and
Mm.
that's it.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't, and I think unless you have lived it, you don't necessarily understand that difficulty, I guess, in holding a space that caused so much pain and so much trauma, but yet was perhaps a place of great healing and great hope and great peace. And I mean, I
Yeah.
always have I described myself as an all or nothing Christian. I was that black or white. I'm at 100% or I'm at 0%. And so you can't sit with that trauma unless you sit with the peace and the joy as well. And I think for people who have not lived that, it seems contradictory. It seems like, how can you hold both of those together? Um, but it's just that reality of the spectrum of spirituality is just very, very vast and very diverse.
Yeah.
What was your journey, I guess, in terms of coming to a place of peace about your sexuality and your gender when you were told that it was the root of all
Mm.
evil inside of you?
It's quite funny in a way. I decided, possibly because I have past addictions, I was like, oh, well, if the devil's inside me, I've left the church, I may as well enjoy myself. So that's exactly what I did. I was like, I'm going to have as much sex as I possibly can with
Yeah.
whoever I want. I'm
Yep.
going to travel. I'm going to dance. I'm going to drink. I'm going to take drugs again. I'm going to have a brilliant time because I'm not responsible to anyone. Because the thing is, I
Yeah.
don't have family. So I have no family. I was divorced. I had my own house. I had to make new friends. I'd left the church. I was like, I literally have nothing to lose.
Mm.
Okay, I'm going to have a great time.
Yep.
And I did. I almost destroyed myself again.
Mm.
But I did. And it was a great exploratory journey. So I was like, okay, there's no boxes now because the devil's inside me. So I'm just going to have lots of fun. But of course, you can't keep doing that, right? Because if you're
Yeah.
working, luckily I had a job and had to be more responsible than in my 20s. And it was during that period when I actually started to have like public relationships with people of whatever gender and sexuality. And in my past, that was quite hidden. Not
Okay.
my choice, but it was very much, if we're doing this, you're a secret. So
Mm.
now I was mid 30s. I was like, oh, this is great. It doesn't have to be a secret. Okay, so it was really an amazing time to
Mm.
explore, and it was also bizarre. I was like, I don't even know what my sexuality is. I've got no idea. I don't care. Let's just see what fits. And there was still some of that conditioning in the
Mm.
background of this isn't right. There's no book for this. Where's the book? I was
Mm.
like, I don't know what I'm doing. There's no rules. So that was confusing.
Yeah. Was there a moment where I guess it went from what sounds like, I guess, a journey of rebellion almost of, well, I'm
Yeah.
just going to have fun with it and I'm going to do everything that I was told I was not allowed to do. Is there a point where it went from rebellion to acceptance?
Yeah, I think as I got into more serious relationships with people,
Mm.
so it really was dating where I was still clubbing because I love dancing. But it was like, all right, I'm actually having public relationships
Mm.
with people of whatever gender and sexuality. And I'm generally happier when I'm poly.
Yep.
I'm mono at the moment. So that was also part of, I was like, right, okay,
Mm.
so I can have relationships with multiple people at the same time and
Yeah.
actually have functional relationships. I was like, this is very cool. So
Mm.
yeah, I thought, oh, this is who I am. Right. So
Mm.
yeah, there was I didn't understand why it was seen as sinful at all. I had the opposite. I'm like, I totally don't get this now.
Yeah.
So I put that in a box.
We love boxes. I think
Um,
anybody who has been a part of the church at one point or another loves the structure and the ability to box things up. I think it just is one of those things that I think it's a part of what draws somebody to that sort of life. But how did I guess that um indoctrination around um, uh, diverse relationship structures and sexualities and genders being sinful, how did that then relate to that acceptance that you came to? Was it something that you had to continually sort of untangle? Is it something that you're still untangling?
no, I'm lucky that it was very much because it felt so right.
Mm.
I was like, oh, okay, well, the Bible's wrong then. That was I'm like, okay, well, the Bible's wrong, and I'm going to decide that God's wrong, apparently, in my brain, because
Yep.
this feels right, and I just don't get it. So I very much went, right, I don't know what that was during that time. And,
Mm.
I have one of my closest friends is a transgender man who is also has a very strong faith and is in the church. And so I have an example who I'm around regularly of someone who is transgender and has faith. So
Yeah.
I have that as an example of this doesn't have to be sinful. So I was
Mm.
like, well, hang on, in his church, it's okay. So now I'm really confused. So I was like, I put it in a box for a while, going, well, God and the Bible are wrong. And then I saw my mate, and I'm like, oh, hang on a minute. So
Mm.
how can you be trans and in the church? I mean, this is quite relatively recently compared to 2004 when I was indoctrinated. But that has given me the example of, oh, all of this can exist together with the right church and the right support. So it's actually more about people, not faith.
Yeah. It sounds like there was the ability in your mind to be able to almost, like in TV shows where there is a season of episodes, it's almost as though you're able to sort of go, okay, well, that season's done now. This is the new season. And I can just leave that where it was. It can just exist in that season.
I'm very much like that.
Yeah.
That's the way I don't know if that's part of my autistic traits as well. Just like, okay, that bit's over, and here's another incarnation. I've had
Yeah.
lots of incarnations in my life. Um, and it wasn't until I met my mate about 11 years ago, and that's where I understood that you could be queer and have faith. And that caused another level of confusion. I didn't want to go back to the church. I still had a lot of that's done. I can't go back to that.
Yeah.
But it was, okay, so this can exist, and I was never sinful then in that respect.
What was that like for you emotionally? Was it confusing? Was it encouraging, refreshing?
All of that, really, because I really trust my friend, and I don't talk about religion much. My clients who are spiritual or have faith, that's fine. I have an issue with it. But personally, I very rarely talk about it. It's in that box where I don't necessarily have emotion around it, but I'm uncomfortable. So with him, though, he can talk freely about it because I do have the intense kind of conversion therapy period. So I have a lot of biblical knowledge, and we can talk about it on a theoretical basis of examining things. So I can hear it from him and not hear it as I'm talking about faith. It's more I'm talking about different principles that are in the Bible. So that's been good for me to be able to go, I can be around someone who has a faith, who is queer, and not feel threatened when they talk about the Bible. Because with some other people, I do. Like my partner went through physical abuse in the church. So that's also people who visit know to never ever mention the church here. So that's another reason why it's in that box in my house.
Yeah. It's it would almost become a default setting if you are used to sort of having that boxed up for the emotional safety of someone you love. It then just becomes a natural sort of tendency to not bring that up in other situations.
It is, and I can't go in a church. I still can't go in one. There was a fete at our local church recently, and I love markets, and I couldn't go in because I felt I won't be accepted there. Everyone knows here that I'm queer because I live openly as queer, but we're the only queer people in town. And I just thought I can't. And at the same time, there was that's shitty because I'd like to go. I probably could go, and nobody might say anything. And the stalls are outside, but there's this like a force field. There's this I can't go in there. I don't want to go in there. So it's very much there's still a level of trauma around that. Obviously, where I'm like that, no, I just keep that away. So yeah.
You obviously mentioned not being able to go into the church and things like that. Are there other ways that you see that the impact of that trauma?
Yeah, I mean, we've had to leave 2 houses due to transphobic attacks from our neighbours. The last ones were from apostolic neighbours. So I mean, I laugh about it now, but wasn't funny at the time. I was told I'm an abomination in Christ. And I thought, right, so I'm an abomination in Christ, and I also have the devil inside me. I'm a really important person. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, so I'm like this amazing, like 5 foot nothing power. I'm an abomination in Christ. I'm sure he's got other people to look at as abominations, but that kind of thing was yelled frequently. And I thought, now it's bad enough what I went through, and now I'm having that used against me.
Mm.
So having like biblical phrases used against me is triggering. It
Yeah.
brings up the Bible study time. It brings all that up. So I can't deal with that.
Yeah.
So I do have a few friends of faith, and they very much know, preferably don't talk about it. Or if you talk about it, like, I don't have an issue with you having faith,
Yeah.
but make it a very general comment.
Mm.
So yeah, I stay away, and I guess because we know so much about conversion practices, and having a lot of queer clients who've been through that, I
Yeah.
also feel their trauma
Yeah.
in relation to any time I'm near someone of faith, which is a bit unfair, really. I'm generalizing completely, but it just comes up as a no, don't go there.
Yeah. I think there is, I find for me it sort of manifests in a natural cynicism and a natural skepticism of people in that who are deeply religious or something. But it is, I think, unless you have experienced it, it is a deeply painful experience to have words that brought you immense joy and peace be
Yeah,
weaponized against you.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and and it is incredibly painful when that happens. And ironically, and we did not plan this, but we are recording it in Trans Awareness Week, which is nice.
yeah,
Um, but the religious discrimination against the queer community at large is incredibly painful for queer
yeah,
people of faith, especially.
yes,
Um,
yeah.
so, yeah, what brings you joy and peace now?
Hmm. Um, Joy's not easy to come by much. I'm a chronic pain battler, and I have PTSD from the transphobic attacks.
Yeah.
So I do get moments of joy with my therapy dog. So she
Mm.
makes me laugh. She's very silly. So I walk her at the end of the day. So it's a big kind of getting all the emotion out from my sessions. And she bounces around like a bunny rabbit. So that makes me laugh.
Yeah.
Um, the biggest solace I get, well, probably one of the biggest solaces I get is quiet,
Mm.
quiet and safety. So, because we've been threatened, so my wife is trans, and I'm genderqueer, so we've been threatened a lot. I got threatened last week again. So it's knowing I'm safe, but because of my PTSD, I never really feel safe.
Yeah.
So I have noise trauma from what we were put through with one lot of neighbours. So if I can have quiet, my system relaxes. So
Yeah.
for me, I try to keep life as quiet as possible. If I can stay safe, then that's okay. It's very isolating
Mm.
though, because it's hard to trust people. You never know, when they know who I am, which is why I live openly. I kind of say to people, I'm queer, can you deal with it? It's like,
Yeah.
okay, if you can't deal with it, go away. I don't have the space, and I can't deal with the trigger. So yeah, it's very much safety and peace. And being around fellow queer people, which is hard being the only queer people in town.
Yeah.
So I get a lot of joy of connection with my trans community, even though it's virtual.
Mm. It's that sort of sense of ease, I think, when you are amongst
Yeah,
company that you know.
yeah,
And I mean, we are certainly not amiss to the fact that there is still great discrimination even within the queer community, but it is one less thing to think about. I think it comes down to that sense of ease. I can relate to the sensory safety as well in terms of quiet and in particular smells and things like that. Churches have a smell. I'd never really noticed until I left, but churches have a very distinct smell, I find. And so that sensory aspect, I can relate to it sort of regulating your nervous system. And anybody who has come across my practice knows that I also love the company of a dog. My sweet Nut is always in bouncing around in the practice, giving everybody kisses and cuddles. So she is, I understand the joy that is brought from an animal around. I am finishing these with one question, which is, what would you say to somebody who is in the depths of detangling their faith or deconstruction or leaving the church? What would you say to them?
There are people out there to help you, like not just advocating myself, obviously, but there are other people who've gone through this. And it really helps if you can speak to people who have, because it's only really people who have who get how complex this is, and also give you the inspiration that you can come out the other side. And you can come out the other side and keep your faith. Absolutely. My choice was not to do that, but that's not seen enough. Right, there are organizations out there like Equal Voices, right? Okay, where you can, there's a lot of queer support and faith, but it's knowing you don't, I wasn't given the choice. So it's knowing that you don't have to abandon that. You can make your faith whatever you need it to be. It doesn't have to be related to a church.
Yeah, absolutely. Often it's referred to as an authentic sense of spirituality, but I actually I sometimes will use the term preferred sense of spirituality, because actually there comes a point where you get to choose, and it is about what you prefer and what feels comfy for you. But, I guess something that led to even the creation of this podcast was to give a platform to the fact that there are other people out there, and such a diverse range of people. So yeah, I think it's so important for people to not feel that coming out that they are alone. So I completely agree with that. Thanks for joining me, and thanks for sharing so openly about something that is, it's not easy for people to talk about. So I very much appreciate your transparency.
That's okay. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Beyond the Surface. I hope you found today's conversation as insightful and inspiring as I did. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with others who might benefit from these stories. Stay connected with us on social media for updates and more content. I love connecting with all of you. Remember, no matter where you are in your journey, you're not alone. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep moving forward. Take care.